We all need more power, right? I agree. Today we're gonna be installing this supercharger in a JL Wrangler. It's gonna give a ton more power, and we're pumped because it is our very first one. So Magnuson recently released their supercharger for the JL Rubicon 3.6 liter, and we are pumped to have the opportunity to install it on this green JL. You may have watched a video that we've got on our channel about this JL and some of the other accessories that we've done, but of course this thing's pushing a lot of weight and has some really big tires on it. So we're gonna be installing this right here. This is everything that comes included in the supercharger kit from Magnuson. Now initially, one would think that it's very, very similar to the 3.6 supercharger installation from a JK. And we do have a video for that on our YouTube channel as well if you're interested in watching a JK supercharger install. But after unboxing this, it is completely different. The blower looks similar, but it's gonna be mounted in a completely different configuration. We're excited to show you what this all looks like. Like I said before, this is our first one, and we're gonna be filming the whole thing because it is an awesome way to get a little bit more power out of the 3.6 JL. So we're about halfway through the supercharger installation, and I wanted to show you about where we're at and what we've got to do next. Of course, much of the disassembly is already done. Mike's doing a great job working on this. The lower intake, upper intake, alternator, all that stuff's been removed. Of course, the intake and air filter is all out. And you can see there's a fair amount of work to put it all back together. Funny story, to pull the grill off, you actually had to take the winch and move it forward and get the bumper loose. So now that we're here, we had to take the grill off to mount this heat exchanger. Like much of the Magnuson superchargers, they use a water to air heat exchanger, and that gets mounted right there with its own separate pump and reservoir. Once we get that mounted, of course, we'll show you that. Over here, we're gonna show you a little bit of a disassembly. Of course, here is the factory lower intake and upper intake. This is where the air comes into the engine, through that, and right in there. This is what gets replaced with the new supercharger system. We have this kind of mocked up right here. This is what this thing is gonna look like sitting in there. Of course, the supercharger is belt driven, and that's what this pulley is. The air is gonna come in here, and we're gonna take this little hat off, right? The air is gonna come in this passageway and is gonna be compressed by those two screws there. Of course, whenever you compress air, you're gonna be generating heat. So it's gonna go through this cooler, right? This is the cooler where the antifreeze that goes through that heat exchanger is gonna come in here through this cooler. The air is gonna go through there and into this new all aluminum lower intake. Of course, the injectors are gonna go in here, and Magnuson provides you with new injectors as well. They're gonna flow a lot better to make sure this thing has got enough extra fuel for all the extra air that's going in. I'd say we got another day to go for installation. A lot of this stuff, of course, we've got to put back in, like the alternator and all those components over there, the vacuum pump. But so far, so good. I really like how this thing looks, but I wanted to show you kind of this tear apart because once you get the supercharger in, you're really not going to see much of it other than this lid. So it's going so good that we wanted to show you exactly where we're at. Of course, once we get it wrapped up, we'll show you even more. So we just got the JL back from the customer. Of course, we installed this Magnuson supercharger and it works awesome. I got to drive the thing and man, does it rip. The customer had a couple trips to Rausch Creek and did some other off-road stuff local and is blown away with just how well it performs. Of course, we really like it. Check it out here. Of course, it's all done. There may be a little mud here and there because he's definitely using this thing off-road, and that's one thing that we really like to see. Overall, the installation went awesome, except we had one small little problem, and that was with the coolant pump. See, there's a coolant pump in here, and it pumps coolant from this heat exchanger and back into this reservoir and through a heat exchanger in there. And we showed all that earlier. Well, that pump will not pump if there is any air whatsoever in it. It took us a few times bleeding that system out to actually get that pump to work well and normally. And once we did, it works like a charm. But if you're installing one of these, just keep that in your mind. If you know there's something weird with that pump, stick it in a gallon of water and apply power and ground to it, and it'll work perfectly to get the thing bled out. Just take your time and it'll happen. We really love how this thing turned out. After driving it, it's just awesome to get that extra power when you need it, especially when you're pulling big tires like 37s, bumpers, racks, all the extra stuff. If you like this video, be sure to comment on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube. We're there on all those platforms. Thanks for following along. See you on the next video.